look at this. Let's look at the third one right here. You have got a polynomial that's got 4 terms. 1, 2, 3, 4. Grouping is a pretty slick way. Because Joey, if you look at them all together at the same time, they're going to have nothing in common. But if you break them up into 2 pairs, you're going to find that they will have something in common. So there's 4 terms. Which 2 do you want to look at? Which 2 do you want to look at? And there's a little freedom. There's not an exact 2 that you have to look at. Which 2 do you jump out at you? They got something in common. Okay, so the 15a and the 5. You want to look at those 2? So let me rewrite it out here. So let's write negative 15a and a minus 5. Okay, so let's just zero in on these 2. Now what jumps out at you about those 2? What do they got in common? And let's do this. They're both negative, so let's pull out a negative 5. If I factor out a negative 5, I'm going to rewrite that as a negative 5 times what? 3a plus 1. So negative 5 times the quantity 3a plus 1. Now let's put a plus here, because this is all just a big plus problem. So if I grouped the negative 15a and the negative 5, you're left with this. You're left with grouping the 3ax and the x. So if you look at those 2, Joey, 3ax plus x. So this group plus this group, what is the 3ax plus x? What can you factor out of that? If you factor out an x, you're going to be left with this. 3a plus 1. Okay, now what you've done is this. By grouping them, you factored out a GCF of the 15a and 5, and then you factored out a GCF of the 3x and x, and now look what happens. They have a common factor. So negative 5 times the quantity 3a plus 1 plus x times the quantity 3a plus 1. This is now your common factor. So now let's factor this out. Let's pull this out. So if you factor out a 3a plus 1, what's left? Times a minus 5 plus x. And that's your answer. So, pretty slick. Let's do this now. Okay, so let's look at number 1 on the worksheet. So you got 12n cubed minus 28n squared minus 15n plus 35. So which 2 do you want to group together? So if you look at these 2 guys, what's the GCF? What do they got in common? 4. And how many n's can you factor out? So let's factor out 4n squared. That's going to be our GCF. So 4n squared times what's 12n cubed? 3n. And 4n squared times what's negative 28n? Minus 7. Okay, now I'm going to put a plus. Now if I look at these 2, negative 15n and plus 35. What's the GCF of those guys? This group right here. It's going to be a minus 5, but how many of you just did plus 5? Okay, let's do the plus 5, because that's what's tricky about this. If you factor out a GCF of 5, you're going to get this. 5 times what's a minus 15n? So minus 3n, and 5 times what's 35? Plus 7. So now let's look and see what we got. And you're going to notice this. This first one you got 3n minus 7. And the second one we got a minus 3n plus 7. So they're not exactly the same. So we're kind of done. Unless we could make them be the same. How could we make this 3n minus 7 equal this? Or this equal this? How can we make them the same? is what Joey said. What if instead of pulling out a 5, what if you factored out a negative 5? So a negative 5 times what is a negative 15n? That would be a plus 3n. And a negative 5 times what is a positive 35? That would have to be a negative 7, because a negative 5 times negative 7 is positive 35. So now, without too much work, I made this and this exactly the same thing. So now they become your GCF. So now factor out a 3n minus 7. So if you factor out a 3n minus 7, you're going to get an expression that says 3n minus 7 times 4n squared minus 5, or plus a negative 5. And that's your answer. Okay, let's try 2. Try 2. Whoops. Where am I? Alright, number 2. Let's group the first 2 and let's group the last 2. So if you group 3b cubed plus 12b squared, what's the GCF of those two terms? 3b squared. You can factor out a 3b squared from each term. So 3b squared times what's 3b cubed? B plus 3b squared times what's 12b squared? So here's what I got. I got 3b squared times b plus 4. And I'm going to add that to my second group. So my second group, a minus 2b minus 8, what can we pull out of that? What's the GCF of minus 2b minus 8? Let's factor out a minus 2. If we factor out a minus 2, we're going to get b plus 4. And if we add this, minus 2 times b plus 4, to what we got from our first group, the GCF now, they each have a common b plus 4. So now let's factor out the common factor, the b plus 4. So if you factor out a b plus 4 from each one, you're going to have b plus 4 times 3b squared minus 2, or plus a negative 2. And that's your answer. So, how many of you guys are starting to get a feel for grouping? Okay, on your worksheet, problem 30. Here we go. Okay, so we're going to group them. Now you got 4 terms. You got a polynomial with 4 terms. Which 2 do you want to group? 18 and the 30? Okay, I kind of like 18 and the 30 because the numbers both have a GCF. And look, this has a y and this has a y. So if we group 18xy with minus 30y, I kind of like that. And you're going to get this. The GCF of these two terms is 18 and 30. You can divide them both by 3. 6. You can divide them both by even a 6. So let's factor out a 6. And they each have a y. Let's factor out a 6y. So you're going to have 6y times 3x. And a 6y times what's a minus 30y? Minus 5. So here's what I got. I got 6y times the quantity 3x minus 5. Now I'm going to add to that. Let me change colors. I'm going to add to that my second group. Look at my second group right here. Minus 15x plus 25. What's the GCF there? 5? Do a negative 5? Why do you want to do a negative 5? Because this is your target. You want to get this. You want to get a positive 3x minus 5. So if I pull a 5 out, I'm going to get this. I'm going to get a negative 3x plus 5. But if I alter that a little bit, if I pull a negative 5 out, that's going to give me my target. This is going to be 3x minus 5. Now, these are both correct. They're both the exact same thing. But if I had to choose the top or the bottom, I want to choose the bottom because minus 5 times 3x minus 5. Now I got 3x minus 5 and 3x minus 5. I got a common factor. So I got two terms here. This term plus this term. The GCF is 3x minus 5. So now I'm going to factor out a 3x minus 5. 3x minus 5 times 6y minus 5. And that is problem 30. Let's look at problem 40. Okay, problem 40. Which two do you want to pair up? Now look, we got how many letters? We got A's, Z's, X's, H. Now we got 4 letters. So which two do you want to pair up? 5AZ with what? So let's go 5 with the 15. So 5AZ. So now you got 4 letters. Plus 15AH. Okay, what can you factor out? What's the GCF? 5A. Pull out a 5A. So 5A times Z plus 3H. Okay, now let's pair my next two. The next two are going to be negative 3xh minus xz. So what do you want to factor out of that? Just a x. But let's pull a negative out. Let's pull a negative x out. So if I pull a negative x out, I'm going to have 3h plus z. And I'm in luck because that's what I got up here. So negative x times quantity 3h plus z plus this guy 5a times the quantity z plus 3h. Right here's your GCF, z plus 3h. So now factor that out. 3h plus z times the quantity minus x plus 5a. And you're done.